We're going to talk about all the really big, hard-hitting issues, right?
Why Boulder is such a magnet for food innovation.
It's a product of the pandemic in a lot of ways. The federal government is well poised to make those kinds of requirements. They have a lot of power there.
Any insights and specifics into food flowing into these athletes?
I'm not surprised to hear that food's a priority. We are basically building a giant jigsaw puzzle every week in terms of how we get folks set up.
I think the first time I met you, when did you take on the role as the executive director of the CEO, the president of the Boulder County Farmers Market?
Yeah, I took this role on about 3 years ago in April 2022, and you were my first meeting, my first vendor meeting.
It was a little emotional for me because I had been a vendor for 2-3 years, and I felt like I had some friction with the market. Prior to that, it just wasn't really working. Maybe it seemed like they didn't want me there, or it just wasn't really working. And then they had kicked me out, or didn't invite me back to the market without saying why. And then I was really excited when you took on the role, and you met with me, and I shared my experience, and that all got sorted out in a good way. But what was your experience coming on? What was kind of like the what was maybe the energy, the vibe of the market to your understanding prior to coming on, and what was some of your initiatives that you've been implementing to bring it into the really nice way that the market is today?
Oh, well, thank you for saying it's in good shape today. I'm really delighted and proud to be part of that community. It's an amazing organism. So Boulder County Farmers Market's been around for 40 years next year. Been operating in downtown Boulder, in the heart of that city, and it's gone through a lot of different iterations. It was started as far as I can tell, 2 community advocates who wanted to have a farmers market in Boulder. They found the space, they sort of convinced the city to allow it to go forward, and then they transitioned to a farm-operated, farm-managed system a couple of years later. And from that point, it was mostly farmers managing the logistics of that market until about 2011, when they hired their first professional executive director who was tasked with figuring out how to make it function as a nonprofit. And I see my taking on this role as the baton pass from that executive director. And I really came in wanting to add to the history of that organization and lean back into the community side of things. So from my perspective, it was a lot of getting to know folks, a lot of understanding the dynamics of the community and helping to support that through the formation of relationships.
What does it mean to run a farmer's market as a nonprofit?
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
Great question. I always joke that folks are always surprised that I have a job, right? Everyone wonders what I do all year long. I'm a full-time, year-round employee, which is the best gig in the world. And our job is to be the plumbing of the farmers market. I think of it as a Broadway play. We set up twice a week for 34 weeks a year in Boulder and in Longmont. And all of the permitting, all the vendor management, all the grant applications, all of the setting up of physical tents and selling merch and running our website and talking to people about why local food is the work that my team does. So my job is actually to hire people who are smarter than me and remove barriers from them being able to do their work. It's also my job to tell the story of the farmers market and to recruit ambassadors and recruit champions to local food. And then I do a fair amount of systems thinking and thinking about how do we have a local food system in this community and what does it mean to not just have a great place to eat, but be the best place to grow and produce local food as well as consume it.
So much to jump into there. What does your team look like today, and how does that work with the seasonality of the market?
Sure. So we are a core team of about 12 people. We operate a Wednesday farmers market in Boulder, a Saturday farmers market in Boulder, and a Saturday farmers market in Longmont. We also operate a year-round local food hub in Longmont, where we're aggregating from about 70 small food businesses. And we are buying wholesale local products. We're selling via a retail online website. And we're doing a lot of bulk ordering and distribution to institutions. So CU is a great partner. We've got some wonderful partnerships with local restaurants. So both of those enterprises, our seasonal farmers markets and our food hub, have seasonal or hourly staff. So depending on the time of year, we can be as small as those 12 folks or as big as 30, because it takes an army of logisticians and customer service folks and delivery drivers and warehouse packers to move local food or set up farmers markets.
Who are you communicating the most with on your team or outside of your team?
I mean, for me, I have some amazing direct reports in my marketing director and my finance and operations director and our seasonal markets director and our food access manager and food hub manager. So these are all super smart, super committed professionals who are working on the day-to-day operations and logistics of those programs. And my job is to work with them to solve problems, to make sure they're well-resourced, and ultimately to be accountable to the board and our membership around making sure we're fulfilling our mission. So our whole thing is about promoting, supporting, and expanding local agriculture, and then making local products more accessible to our community. And every activity, every program, every pound of food that is sold through our markets is in support of that mission. And that mission, in my opinion, is in service of a vision of a thriving, equitable, and diverse food system that's delicious and for all folks.
Can you give us an idea of the scale of from vendors, the farms? Like, what's the breakdown of farms to ready to eat or packaged foods like what I'm bringing?
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. You know, we think about farmers markets as a place for folks who grow and produce their food to meet the public, right? So we have about 175 members this year across those 3 different farmers markets. We have about a third of those folks who are farmers and ranchers and mushroom growers and microgreens growers and, you know, folks who are hands in the soil raising their product. We have another third of folks who are on that pantry side. So they're doing that packaging. They're making incredible salsas and hot sauces and products like yours, where we're extending the season, we're preserving, we are making something unique with what is grown here locally. And then, you know, another third of the ready-to-eat food items. So those are our pastry bakers. Those are our incredible, diverse, small food truck businesses offering things like Afro-Caribbean food and American barbecue and healthy, delicious vegan. And, you know, that whole crowd is folks who've been in business from anywhere from 40 to 0 years. And it's a really interesting mix of folks. In addition to those 175 small food businesses, we have another, I'd say about 110 artisan and crafter members that we work with. They are less of a part of our business, but they're supportive to our seasonal farmers markets. And they are making and producing crafts and art items here in Colorado. And then on top of those folks, we have our community partners who are other local nonprofits. They're public service entities. They're folks who are rooted in our community and really support just our general good in the community and spend some time at our farmers markets. So it's a large community.
And what percentage of the vendors on any given market are farms or, you know, that not packaged?
So our mandate is 60% of the square footage of the market be agricultural. right? So producers, that honey, that fresh greens, that fruit. And that's something that's unique. We set that standard for ourselves and are really strict about it because we see our primary mission as agriculturally producing. And then, that pantry and prepared fills around it. And it changes a little bit depending on the season, right? There's less fresh produce on the market street in April than there is in July. So it's a full season total, 60% in agriculture.
Yeah, it's great. What are some of the favorite things that you're getting at the market?
Oh my gosh.
Any time of the season, what are your top things?
Wow. I mean, no one eats better than I do, right? I truly have the best job in the world. I call it the circular economy. I get paid by the market and then it immediately goes back into our vendor products. I am very fortunate to eat very seasonally, and I'm very fortunate to eat based on what's good with each individual market. So I'm really enjoying our brand new tempeh vendor who is with us this season. I'm really enjoying a couple of our fermented and lacto-fermented, in particular, pickle makers. I'm putting dehydrated microgreens in my eggs a lot right now.
Now freeze drying them.
They're incredible. And they're so crunchy and they're freeze dried. And the technology has advanced even more than I'm aware. But I'm really enjoying having them around. And I'm making them into salad dressing with some of the verjus, which is a old way of making vinegar from grape musks that is grown in the Front Range and all along the Western Slope. So all that is to say that I have access to these really special products, and I'm finding out how to cook with rye berries from one of our local farms. And I'm finding out how to make all these different crazy greens that people are offering. It really is changing on a week-to-week basis, just based on what folks are bringing. And all of it is so delicious because it was grown here for here. It's pretty fun to see the different heirloom varieties and specialty crops that we get here.
Do you have any insight into how Boulder County Farmers Market compares to other markets in the state or in the country, either from size or how they pick the vendors or from any other kind of scale or comparison?
Sure. I mean, in my very biased opinion, but also nationally informed opinion, we have the best farmers markets in the country. And I think something that's unique about our farmers markets is that we're producer focused. So that means if you're selling something at our markets, you made it. Right? We don't allow people to rebuy and resell products. We want our customers to get to know the producer, to get to know those small business relationships, to really understand what grows in this community. Last year, we did about $10 million in local food sales across our various projects. So we punch above our weight in terms of being a farmer's market that can only operate from April through November because we're outside in the weather. And yet we have the best customers in the world. We're world-class producers meeting customers who really care about local food and really invest in it and come back week after week, rain or shine.
What are the biggest days of the year for the vendors?
It really depends on the vendor. I think our local rancher will tell you that sometimes a cold day is pot roast season, and that day is going to be best for that vendor in particular. We have a great bone broth vendor that you might be familiar with, who is the soup czar. She is just absolutely fantastic in those wintry weeks.
Yeah, Kirsten, shout out Boulder Broth.
Amazing product, right? And someone who not only has a wonderful brand story and an excellent tasting food, she's someone who has taken a product, which is bones, from traditional ranching and made them into something new and interesting and value added. So it's a great example of using the whole animal and a great example of making those shoulder seasons really exciting. On a beautiful August day when peaches are in, that's a pretty big day for market business.
That's when I see a line. Yeah. I get envious. I'm like, man, what I would do for a line. People are lined up for the seasonal produce and bread.
I agree with that. That's
what
right.
else are people lining up for?
Wow. Every now and then I feel like flowers are having their day. We have a lot of really cool small flower farmers in this community, and they're making amazingly beautiful product right now. There's something about our harsh alpine desert environment that just makes people appreciate beauty, I think. So that's another one that people are lining up for right now.
What do we have going right now? I'll be a guest of the market tomorrow, and I love being a guest. I'm going to pick up some starter plants.
Excellent.
Do you have a garden? Are you gardening?
I am. I always keep a garden so that I can appreciate farmers because I'm a terrible farmer and I always manage to grow 4 or 5 tomatoes and then I have to buy the rest at the market. So, but I will say, I'm so sorry to Home Depot, but they have nothing on the market starts. There are some incredible gifted green thumbs who are also bringing those plant starters, and you can find a lot of diverse and interesting crops at the farmers market to start in your own garden.
So you're doing tomatoes. Have you tried anything else?
You know, I've got kind of a nice little lettuce patch. I always grow radishes because they're very satisfying. They're early and quick. I'm doing some lemon balm and lemon verbena this year. I'm making a little bit of cocktail syrup. So
very calming, I believe.
much.
Is that any other ideas on the benefits of lemon balm?
Really aromatherapy principles. You know, it's so fragrant and so gorgeous. You know, I'm not a good herbalist, but I do love having all of the herbs in the diet. I think especially this time of year, it's a little slim for those peppers, tomatoes, and other exciting summer vegetables. So doing a lot of herbs, doing a lot of green garlic and onions. That's so delicious.
Have you ever tried microgreens?
You know, I leave the microgreens up to y'all. We have some of the best microgreens vendors. There is so much variety, so much product, and the value add keeps forever. So I am not growing my own. I'm trusting y'all.
Well, what about when it's not available outside of market season? Because that's one of the beauties of microgreens is you could grow it indoors year round.
True. Absolutely. I mean, we have some of our microgreen growers selling to the food hub year round. So I'm spoiled. I can get them all season.
What's your favorite?
I'm a radish greens girl. I like,
you like a little spice? Ooh.
Yeah, the best.
Is there a favorite color? Because we offer different radishes. We have a green, a purple, a red. All offer a little bit different spice, but is there one that you've connected with? Or
you know, purple radish, if I were really having to make an opinion, that's the one. So delicious.
It's a very unique color in nature as well. Those purples signal anthocyanins, like what we find in blueberries and elderberries, a very unique and powerful antioxidant.
Oh my gosh, you can taste it. I really think, even though I'm not a doctor and I don't know all of the incredible antioxidant principles, the flavor tells you something good in there is coming for you. So,
is this food hub, is something new that you brought in?
I didn't bring it in. It's a product of the pandemic in a lot of ways. So you can imagine, everyone can remember March 2020, a lot of uncertainty about public gathering. So Boulder County Farmers Markets, I think rightly said, how are we going to get all this food that had already been raised for our markets into the hands of our customers? And they started aggregating then. Now, 5 years later, I'm really trying to think about what is that for today, now that people aren't staying inside, now that people aren't wanting grocery delivery in the same way. How are we using that food hub infrastructure that we built, the systems for bringing that different small farm product into a quantity that an institutional buyer can access? How are we making sure that that's moving the needle on who's consuming local food? We also only operate 8 months of the year, which is hard on farmers and on eaters because you need to eat well year round.
Even the food hub?
And the food hub is extending all year round. So I really see that as a gap that the food system had before this project. And I'm really pleased to see that our food hub sales, of course, are best during those winter months because people are looking for good food and they're not able to find it.
What does innovation look like in a farmer's market? Now, this food hub, that seems very innovative. Have no idea how many other markets are doing that. Don't really have any insight into markets outside of Colorado. Yeah, what's innovation look like here?
I love talking about innovation. I'm so grateful that you asked that question because I think people think of farmers markets as kind of quaint. You know, it's a lovely way to spend the day with your friends. And while I love that for people, I think it's a great way to access farmers markets. It's a disservice to the small businesses that are operating within them in some ways. You all are so innovative and you're pushing not just what you can offer, but what the season can provide and what foods are available to folks. So when I think about innovation, the first thing I think about is how are we providing spaces for new food businesses? How are we making it possible for entrepreneurs to access customers? And how are we educating the public about what local food innovation really is? So I think about our friends at Masa Seed Foundation. They are a really amazing group of growers who care most about raising bioadapted seeds for this area. They're heirloom varieties, they're drought resistant, they are providing sort of a bounty of foods that you can't traditionally find. And it just happens that they also produce food during that project, because in order to save seeds, you have to grow the crop. And then you save some and you sell the rest. So that is incredibly innovative to me. They are working always to improve their seed line, but it's also a really old way of working in the food system. So innovation can mean reinvigorating some of those historical practices and giving them new life and new energy. That's one. You mentioned your freeze-dried greens. I think that season extension innovation is something that's really interesting to places like Colorado, where we are not growing 365 days of the year like we are in California. We need to figure out how to preserve food and get it to folks. And it takes a lot of technology and innovation to get us there. So those are the vendor side. I think from the farmers market side, the way I push my team on innovation is, how are we making this a place for our actual community? Not our community of 10 years ago, not our community in our minds, but the folks who really do live, work, and make the places where we operate farmers markets special. That can mean thinking about different kinds of music. That can mean looking at how we incorporate art and culture into the markets. That can mean changing our hours. That can mean making our streets more physically accessible. That also informs our financial accessibility programs and how we're pushing to make local food more affordable to more folks. So we have a lot of innovation on that, just how to make the community space more representative of our community. We're also just loving gathering people. So, I don't know, in particular, this season we're doing something new called Supper Club, where we have a potluck style meet in a public place with all of your neighbors, BYOB, bring your own potluck dish, and talk about local food. So I think some of our innovation too is just being that container for people having great ideas and meeting each other.
Anything from a way of technology?
Systems really matter to us. We're a small team and we do a lot. I know 12 sounds like a lot of people for a farmer's market, but if you figure that's 12 people managing this $10 million in sales, managing 50 weeks a year of local food access, managing those 300 different stakeholders, as well as paying our taxes and promoting to the public and writing grants, it's a lean team. So we were always looking to figure out, how do we take advantage of better systems? How are we utilizing inventory management? How are we using our communications platforms? What are we learning from storytelling? And how are we thinking differently about visual and emotional and sensory? So a lot of just that interest in the technology side in order to make our work easier.
Does AI play a role in the organization yet today?
Our teams are experimenting with AI in the sense that we're curious about, how do we use those tools to make our work more efficient, right? So we have a very smart finance director. I'm proud to say she's just about to finish her MBA at DU in a week. So we'll be celebrating her newly minted credentials.
What's her name?
Her name is Elizabeth Eckstein. Incredible.
Nice job, Elizabeth.
Best. Yes, congratulations, Liz. We're so proud of you. We have two Liz's, our market manager and our finance director, so run by Liz's. But Liz has done a tremendous job incorporating some of the AI tools in Excel for financial modeling. So I'm always curious, how do we operate in such a way where we're charging what we need to sustain the organization without taking more money from producers and small business folks than we need? There's so many amazing modeling and financial tools that allow us to run different scenarios on that front and so many others so that we can see what's possible. So that's one example of the way that AI is informing our work. I think of it as our really great college intern, right? Not as good as our really expert staff and can't be out there setting up a tent, rain, shine, or otherwise. But it can certainly be a tool to expedite some of the process so that our team can focus on what we're really good at.
Something that's coming up for me is I use AI around analyzing large amounts of data. I'll just dump a bunch of information in it and it'll look for patterns. It'll help me see things. You guys are really great at knowing the numbers of people coming through the markets. And it seems like you've got a clicker going through every hour, counting, roughly how many people are there every hour throughout the market. I wonder if there's a way to utilize AI based on vendor sales and like location in the market. It seems like it's a little bit of an art and a science on where you place the vendors. I wonder if AI could help to figure out the market maps. Would you tell us about the market maps and how that's thought about?
Sure. I mean, that might be inside baseball, but I love talking about it, right? So one of the things that we have to do is physically place our vendors in space, right? We only have so much space in the market. We have so many vendors. And we spend a lot of time looking at our historical maps. We spend a lot of time looking at power and electrical needs and what's available on the street. And we are basically building a giant jigsaw puzzle every week in terms of how we get folks set up. One of the curiosities I have about that big data dump, more so than even placing vendors, is taking the downtown data that folks have, particularly our friends at the city of Boulder. They're doing an amazing amount of cell phone data tracking and understanding visitor patterns. I'd really love to know how the navigation between the downtown physical space and the farmers market physical space are interacting, and who makes the jump across the big busy street from downtown into the market, and how do we sort of make that easier? How do we understand who those different customers are, and how do we work for them and with them a little bit more and harder? So that's something. I think the other place I see a lot of interesting possibility with AI is on helping vendors see their own booth setup and their own business from a customer perspective, right? We ask a lot of small businesses, you know that well. You have to be the producer, you have to be the manufacturer, you have to be the storyteller, you have to be the seller, and then you have to pack it up, take it home, and do it again next week. So I'm really curious about how some of these virtual tools can make that easier for you all and can make recommendations like merchandising specific to your particular product, not yours because you're an excellent merchandiser, but an individual vendor's product, so that they can see how customers see their food and why it might matter to merchandise it differently in order to make it more accessible.
In the world of packaged foods vendors, is there a common theme that you see for those that really do well, either doing well at the market, or even able to just survive and stay in business, or to even in some ways thinking of graduating out of the farmers market? Now they're using a co-packer. Now they're scaling outside of their own kind of local abilities.
First and foremost, you have to have a great product, right? We are privileged to have an amazing group of customers. Our customers also have high standards and good taste. So that quality of the food itself is the starting point. No one who doesn't put all of the time, care, and expertise in their food that our vendors do can make it, in my opinion. That's the most important. And then I think the second most important thing is that storytelling element. Who are you? How does your product connect to your customer? Why does your food matter? Where can the customer find their toehold into your story? And how are the two of you working together to make the better food system that we all want? I think our customers really want to be part of the thing. And I think package vendors who tell a story about what the thing is and why it matters are more successful. I think beautiful packaging is also helpful, although I think it's interesting there's a limit there where it feels too corporate or it feels too commercial or it feels too polished and it can be off-putting. So that's the part where there's real expertise and real intuition from the package vendor side.
Some people refer to Boulder as the Silicon Valley of the natural products industry.
Sure.
I moved to Boulder because of Naturally Boulder, in part because of the Boulder Farmers Market as well.
Sure.
Just the access to some infrastructure, professionals, mentorship, and then an incredible community. Can you speak to why Boulder is such a magnet for food innovation?
Oh, man, aren't we so lucky to live here in the heart of local food? In my opinion, when people talk about Boulder as a tech destination or Boulder as a running destination, I always think they're missing the point. Boulder is an innovation hub, and food is the engine of that innovation for this community. So that is in part because people like you keep coming and reinforcing that and making it further entrenched in our roots, which is exciting. But I genuinely believe that there's a quality of life connection here. Boulderites love beautiful things. They love nature. They love enjoying themselves. And that to me manifests in our art scene and our music scene and our food scene. I also think that there's a long history of caring about how food is produced and not just how it's produced, but then what, right? So we're the home of White Wave food, which ultimately became Danone White Wave, a huge natural products engine and driver. We've got our friends at Naturally Boulder who have expanded to be Naturally Colorado because they want that local food ethos to keep going. We have soup to nuts, those investors, those technical advisors, those wild entrepreneurs who are willing to be mentors, those new idea generating folks, and also some of the shared facilities and infrastructure and I think cultural capital that make innovation hubs possible. So all those things work together with our customers' just real love of really good food. I mean, we're amazingly lucky. The things that people buy here, I think, reflect their values and reflect their commitment to those great innovative products.
You get to see a lot of brands, and then even behind the scenes in many of those brands, from how they're manufacturing to scaling to even what their sales numbers are on a week-to-week basis. If you were to bring a food brand to market today, where's your inspiration there? What
a great question.
What might you do?
What a great question. I mean, I think the thing that's interesting right now is that I'm getting old, right? I can see that. I know it's hard to believe. Your energy is
phenomenal.
It's hard to believe, but I do. It's an interesting thing to see different generations of food entrepreneurs, right? I can't wait to see this last week's graduating class of CU entrepreneurs and the flavors that they're going to bring, right? Every new round of innovation and every new round of entrepreneurs so far has expanded our taste buds here in this community. So one, I'm just really grateful to see the newest, coolest, most interesting thing that come out.
Like what?
Oh, man. I mean, I think the flavor of this last year was ube. And that ube was like very interesting. Internationally, it's a staple of the Filipino culture. Bright purple. There's a real visual component of it that's appealing. And I'm seeing it just all over the food system. It's kind of a vanilla-y flavor. It's very lovely, kind of sweet.
It's like a seasoning or a sauce?
I think it's actually similar to a sweet potato almost. It's a starch, but people use it in flour. You can extract it.
They're growing it here?
They're not growing it, but people are using it in boba tea. They are flavoring their pastries with it. It's the just a little something extra that I'm seeing in some of the mostly baked goods side, but I won't be surprised to see some of our bar innovators picking up on it. So that's just something I love about Boulder, that international influence, that multiculturalism that exists. We have a really cool prepared food vendor who identifies as a Pan-Asian first-generation American. So he is borrowing from his Lao tradition from food flavor perspective. His daughter is a Coloradan, so he's borrowing from her flavor profile, and they're making just amazing food. So some of those convergence products are really interesting to me. People who know me know I love beans and legumes. I'm a real lentil girl.
We do grow some beans in Colorado, right?
Absolutely. Colorado is a historic home for dryland beans. There was an old farming practice here where industrially we were growing dryland beans, and they were very low water. There was a lot of infrastructure and sort of systems built up around that have sort of degraded over time, but it's a great place to grow beans. And legumes are magic from a farming perspective. They are not just taking from the soil, they're giving to the soil. Some of the grain chain work that we're seeing come out of Colorado is emphasizing that regenerative farming practice and emphasizing those low water but really delicious products coming out. And I think if it were me, I would be focusing on growing some of those bean-related brands. So maybe it's a crunchy chickpea for snack, or maybe it's a, soup product. I don't know. But beans are where my curiosity is right now.
A good friend of mine, Paloma, she started, I'm forgetting what it's called, but I was freeze drying chickpeas for her.
Awesome.
And that was a phenomenal snack.
Oh, so delicious.
What about getting some beans growing in your garden?
I know I should plant some beans. I should really try to do better collaboration with our farmers. I have one farmer in my network right now who agreed to grow some artichokes for me this year. I did it almost CSA style, but just for artichokes. Put a little seed capital in and are watching those grow. So maybe I should invest in a row of beans from someone and see what happens.
So they're growing them for you at your home?
They're growing them on the farm.
Oh,
yep.
You want a lot of them?
Oh my gosh, as many as I can get. I will eat every artichoke.
How do you do it? Steam them?
Yeah, absolutely. Grill them, steam them, eat them in a pasta, fry them in a fritter. I love them so much. So,
can you just eat the heart, or can you eat the leaf part? Is there any use for that leaf part?
Yeah, there's a little part at the bottom of the leaf. You scrape it off with your teeth. It's kind of an arduous food to eat, but it is really delicious. So come over and have an artichoke when they're ready. I'd love to do that with you.
Any ideas on the medicinal benefits of?
I'm not.
It seems kind of avocado-y. Maybe it's healthy fats. I have no idea what's in it.
Sure. We'll have to investigate more. I don't know the answer to that.
But you like it, and your body's just really hungry for it and really wants it. I would love for you to know for yourself, what are you so hungry for?
Sure.
Because that shows up for me. Sometimes I'll be really hungry for something, and that for whatever reason, my body maybe is deficient in that and just really needs that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point.
Back to innovation. You were talking about extending the season. We talked about freeze drying the microgreens. There's other ways that you're extending the season through the food hub. What about food capture of capturing of food waste?
Yeah. Wow.
Would you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. What a great question. I think this idea of making sure that food that's grown for people is eaten by people is such an important one. And the food system needs to increasingly focus on it, right?
Versus what? Being eaten by the waste going to farm animals?
Or just not being taken to market, right?
Oh, just turning into compost, just going to the landfill.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of on-farm waste for folks who can't get labor, right? If you grow a bumper crop, but you can't get anyone to pick it, withers on the vine. That's a less common thing. Most food waste is post-consumer, right? People buy too much. They're buying in gigantic bulk and they can't manage it, or they don't know how to cook it, or a variety of other factors, including limited time, right? But the energy from a ecological and also human capital perspective is pretty tough when you think about food going to waste in that way. So making sure that people are able to use that product, growing it closer to home so that it's not already half spoiled by the time it gets to your shelves, making sure that it is growing in soil that's really nutrient dense and is yielding a great crop will also make that food last longer. So a variety of tactics for keeping food around. But from our perspective, we work also with some food rescue partners at our markets, in addition to our food hub operation. So we love buying bumper crops. We love taking things that don't sell at the market and redistributing them through the food hub. We're also working with our partners at Boulder Food Rescue and Longmont Food Rescue to donate unsold crops to folks. So we have a pretty tight system. And our food hub in particular is incredibly efficient. We are waiting for orders to come in, then we're getting the food from farmers, then we're distributing them, rather than doing what grocery stores do, which is bring in a big crop and have it sit on the shelves and wait for people to come.
What percentage of the food that comes in, that excess food that comes into the food hub, ends up in a home versus ends up just not able to find a use for it?
Almost all of it. I mean, we have so little shrink that we don't track it because it's not efficient.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really very efficient. And it's also something that's on the customer education side, right? I think most Americans are really used to this visually gorgeous produce that doesn't taste very good. And sometimes in the local food system, the trade you're making is it's a little less perfect, but it tastes much more delicious. So, for example, our food hub manager will have a call with a customer about a piece of kale that's been nibbled by a beetle, and we'll talk about how it's still safe to eat and talk about how you can use it. And I think our customers are also educating themselves and each other about that. And that means that this food that's perfectly nutritious and delicious is getting eaten, which is great.
Any insights into the level of nutrition of locally grown food versus food at the average grocery store that might be being transported from across the country or even the world?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I'd love to send you some information about all the good scientific studies in this area. There are many. I think primarily the categories are, nutrient reduction because conventional soil is stripped of its nutrients, right? So if you're growing a monocrop, you're not rotating, you're not bringing in livestock, you're not doing other regenerative practices, you're not building the health in the soil. And those micronutrients that live in the soil often get absorbed into your food. So you're missing those. Many of our farmers are practicing regeneratively, organically, and doing that work of investing in the soil. So that's one difference. Another difference is you can also contaminate your soil with heavy metals or other chemical fertilizers. So, local food tends to be smaller scale, tends to have a little bit less of that kind of industrial contamination. Additionally, some of the diversity, the biodiversity of the food itself. You're not just eating Roma tomatoes. You have purple Cherokee and green zebra and sun gold and all the crazy heirloom varieties, some of which have better selenium, some of which have better vitamin B absorption. So that variety within the crop is really important as well. And then finally, it's just the whole diet diversity. So not only is the variety perhaps more interesting and nutrient dense, but if you're able to access those many different kinds of vegetables, if you're getting into Jerusalem artichokes, for example, a food that many people have no idea how to eat, but that you'll find at a farmer's market, you're going to get some of those micronutrients that you wouldn't get otherwise because it's unique to that plant.
There's also something to transporting the vegetable or the fruit where it needs to be picked where it isn't ripe yet. So it hasn't ripened in the field, in the tree, so it doesn't have all the nutrients that it could. And it's a living organism, so it is consuming itself while it is in transport or in storage. Some of the stats, at least around microgreens, is they'll lose upwards of 20% of their nutrients every single day after harvest. So that's a real beauty of being at our farmers market where they are harvesting it fresh right there. You can't do any better. What I would recommend to people, all of the microgreens are typically sold that I see in plastic clamshells. That makes sense. But if you could bring your own glass, the microgreens far prefer glass over plastic. I've done a lot of side-by-side comparisons. Microgreens sitting in a glass Tupperware versus plastic Tupperware or plastic clamshell, they'll last twice as long in the glass. They far prefer being stored in glass. So I don't know if there's an opportunity for people to bring in their own glass. These farmers, I would think so. And then for our microgreens, we're harvesting, washing, and freeze drying all the same day because you do lose a lot. So you wonder how long some things have been sitting, how long some produce have been sitting on the shelf. It's at some of these grocery stores, after a week, maybe half of the nutrients are already gone.
That's right. Well, and thank you for bringing up that. How do you preserve your own harvest? How do you, I hesitate sometimes around this issue because local food can start to feel kind of precious and pretentious, right? You have to have your beautiful market basket. It has to be so fresh. You have to eat it right away. And I don't want it to be intimidating to folks. So one of the things that I am very guilty of is buying too much local food. Right? And one of my favorite things to do is to freeze things indiscriminately, right? I have a big bag in my freezer. If I know I'm not going to eat those turnip greens, I am chopping them off and putting that in the freezer bag. And that's a soup for the future, right? Same goes with herbs. I'm often freezing things in olive oil in an ice cube tray so that they're not going to waste or sitting too long and degrading over time. It doesn't have to be the thing you bought just today, but thinking about different ways to take care of the food that you do bring and extend that life for it is a really, I think, economical and ecological way to also participate in the food system.
I'd love to riff on an idea with you that has come up for me a few times at the farmers market. So with the thought of how do we capture food waste, some of my questions have been, is there leakage at the food hub? It sounds like there's some on the farm that people just don't have the labor to capture food that's just rotting at the farm. Did I hear that right?
Certainly there's a couple of local gleaning programs and nonprofits that are helping on that farm labor side. But if you don't have enough farm labor or you don't have a market for it, doesn't make sense to pick it and bring it.
And then Boulder Food Rescue or some of these other nonprofits that are capturing the excess at the market, and those are going to where? To people in need?
Yeah, exactly. Mostly low-income neighborhoods. Each of those organizations have their own distribution networks and work closely with our community members to make sure that they get to eat that food rather than waste it.
So I have a bunch of freeze dryers. They're not always at capacity. There's some seasonality to my business as well. One of the things that I've played with and talked to some farmers about just in the idea of it is capturing food waste wherever it's at. Maybe it's at the market itself. Maybe it's at somehow capturing it from the farm, wherever there's the waste. So how can we capture it as fresh and nutritious as possible? Process it. Maybe that's in a way of pressure cooking it, freeze drying that, powdering that, and now we have a shelf-stable vegetable that people can add into whatever they want.
Please do it. Tell me how I can help. I think it's such a great product idea. I love that.
I think the wondering for me is where do we capture how do we get the food?
I think something that's actually quite interesting and worth just saying out loud is that nationally, there's a really big conversation about food waste. Locally, there's a really good market for food, right? Almost all the food you can grow, you can sell as long as you can get it in front of the customer. So for me, I think there's almost a new line of business there. What you're talking about would incentivize a farmer to plant 3 more rows of beans, for example, or the next, that piece of land that they haven't gotten around to, maybe that's time to put it in seed so that you could preserve. Because I think people are mostly buying fresh products. I'm not seeing a lot of waste, but I am seeing a lot of desire for the kind of product you just described in the wintertime. And, and I know that farmers are so busy during the busy season, they're not necessarily thinking about that storage potential. So I do think some of it's on-farm discussion, especially early in the season. Folks are willing to plant things. You just heard my story about artichokes, right? This is just someone who has some space and was like, sure, I'll do it for you. I think that there really is that start the business from the ground potential in that idea.
You shared how the Boulder Food Rescue, how they're bringing food to just low income, those in need. What are some of the other grants or resources that to give people access to our market that might not have access to without?
Yeah, financial access to local food is, in my opinion, one of the most important issues we work on. There's something about dignity for all of our neighbors. That's really important here to me. It's crazy to me that you can't afford to eat the food your neighbor grows. That's not right. And so Boulder County Farmers Market, in collaboration with a lot of municipal funders at the City of Boulder, at Boulder County Public Health, and the City of Longmont, and some private foundations, work hard to create grant programs that fund a doubling program for SNAP customers, folks who are shopping with the program formerly known as food stamps. For $20 of spending at the farmers market, we'll double that $20 for those customers through those grant programs. That's the same for our WIC customers. So we provide WIC customers with that doubling opportunity, and folks can shop at our farmers markets just like any other customer using those programs. We also fundraise for a local CSA program. So using the food that we're aggregating from different farmers, we work with our WIC customers who have transportation or work barriers to accessing the markets, and we deliver those products door to door. So we do a lot of grant and fundraising. It's something that's really important to us, and we see it as doubly supportive. It's supporting those customers. It's also supporting those farmers because we do buy the food.
Does any of the grant funding come from a federal level?
No, not right now.
And how does the recent change at the federal level affect or impact in any direction these grants?
Wow. I mean, so many ways, right? So many ripple effects. I think a couple I'll highlight. $1 billion proposed cut to the USDA, which is the Department of Agriculture for the national level. That department is running everything from crop insurance to investing in climate change monitoring technology to hiring a guy who really knows about local ranching practices, who can go out and check on farmers and make sure they're doing okay. Impacts to the lack of staffing, impacts to the grant programs that go directly to farmers through that proposed cut is pretty significant. And I worry particularly for rural communities who really rely on the USDA not only for those services, but also for affordable housing development and other infrastructure. It's a pretty complicated system that is an engine for rural America. On the food access side, some of the proposed cuts to the SNAP program are pretty horrific. We're talking about millions of Coloradans who would be impacted by those proposed changes. And I also am watching that Medicare, Medicaid proposed cuts and thinking about how the food systems policymakers and champions have long been advocating that Medicare dollars should be also able to be used for prevention, which includes good food. And we had finally made some good progress on that food for all, on that produce prescription, on that good food for healthcare front that I think will be significantly impacted by these cuts.
What's some of the language around why these cuts might happen?
I think we forget that we're all in it together, right? So the way that I hear about people talking about these cuts is often about reducing a handout or reducing a government assistance to people. And I think when you see cuts like this, you realize that that government support is our collective will at incubating farmers or supporting a low-income mom, making sure she has enough to eat, or innovating a new greenhouse in a rural community, right? We use those collective dollars to invest in, and we're investing in our food system through those federal programs. So I think people genuinely don't understand how much those investments are in their own communities. I don't think they understand that the way we talk about especially programs like SNAP, especially programs around hunger relief, also mean their school lunch programs at their school, at their local public school, or also mean those senior programs that are helping older adults access food as they're living on fixed income. There's just such a large ripple effect, and I think we've lost the people focus of those programs. It's not those people over there in the welfare state. It's my grandma, right? It's a grad student who is unable to work a full-time job because they're studying to be the next climate change scientist or the next engineer who's going to build the cool thing we need. There's a lot of real people that most people know who have benefited from these programs and who should be able to access good food because they just deserve it.
This podcast is brought to you by Be Micro, organic freeze-dried microgreens for easy, natural nutrition. Sprinkle them on any meal and enjoy the benefits. Shop now at bemicro.farm and use code STEVE15 to save.
Are there any programs or policies that are being recommended or brought forward that you're optimistic about that maybe weren't there before? Is there anything that, there's the new, Colorado is in many ways friendly to RFK Jr. His family has always vacationed here in Aspen. There was a very large movement for RFK when he was going for president for a moment. Now he is the secretary he's the human health secretary. I think I'm saying that correctly.
Health and Human Services
Thank
Director.
you. Yeah, and he's run. He was environmental. Not activist, but lawyer for a long time. And so he's very pro-environment, pro-health. Is there anything that his department or that department is bringing forward that you've seen that seems promising?
I mean, we'll take anyone who wants to make the food system healthier, right? I think some of the conversations that need to happen are about what's not working for people. And I think this administration has been willing to point out what's not working for people and has a lot of power and opportunity to not just point out what's not working for people, but actually change systems in order to make things work better for people. So something that comes directly to mind for me is some of these conversations about ultra processing and how are we going to make good food available to folks. I would love to see less ultra-processed food, especially for kids. I think that there's been several attempts in several administrations to address this issue. I think we should advertise to kids less about high sugar, high processed food. I think that should be a requirement that we make. The federal government is well poised to make those kinds of requirements. They have a lot of power there. I think we have a lot of opportunity from the federal level to invest in regenerative farming and innovative farming and move the needle on how are you building soil? How are you making sure that you're not poisoning your waterways, making sure that you're farming in an ecologically responsible way? Feds have a lot of power to do that. It's yet to be seen how this administration will actually implement some of those system improvements. I do think that some of the system deregulation is concerning to me. I really worry about food safety. If we're not testing for listeria in lettuce, we are going to miss contamination and people are going to get sick. So I don't want to see those improvements and innovations be on the back of making it scarier and harder to eat healthy food in this country.
Do you know what the process is around that testing? What USDA, if they have requirements there, if the USDA is testing, any thoughts on that and what you're saying they might peel back?
Yeah, the USDA is responsible for both testing and reporting. So a lot of the reduction in services, a lot of reduction in workforce, and the stopping of those food safety process, which are a checklist monitored by a government employee, is just about under-resourcing that system. We have a pretty amazing and a safe food system. All things considered, we produce a lot of food in this country, and it's very safe to eat. And I think we've all forgotten what it's like to not know if you're going to get sick if you buy something in the grocery store. And a lot of that is because the USDA has quite a formulaic process for testing. It can be improved, right? No bureaucracy is without need for reprocessing or figuring out how to do something better. I really support that. It's hard on farmers. It's hard on customers how much red tape we put in the way of things. So somewhere in the middle of that, where someone is responsible and accountable for safety without someone is a box checker, and it takes a lot of time and money to get it done.
My experience with the USDA is very minimal, extremely understaffed. I would say at a state level, very well staffed. I'm an appreciation of the all the agencies that I've communicated with in Colorado, from Boulder to a state level, phenomenal people, like really strong, get back to you, professional. There's, a little bit of an attitude or an assumption towards government employees or organizations that it's all the DMV, and even the DMV I think is great sometimes. It's like no big deal. So it's no big deal, but there's a lot of really good government agencies, and it sounds like you interact with several at a maybe local, state, and certainly aware of at a federal. Which agencies can you highlight that you think are doing a good job today?
That's such a good, I think your point about the local investment and the local system informing the whole thing is really a good one and an important one. We have a great relationship with our local public health team. They fund our food access programs. They help us think through new projects. They are a resource to farmers. They really want to make sure that, all the pieces are doing the thing we said we wanted to do, which is get healthy food to people. So we have a wonderful partnership there. I would echo your appreciation for the Department of Agriculture workers and that USDA support. Somebody needs to be able to help a new farmer figure out how to farm. And these agencies and these individuals are great resources for that.
And they're not like the police. They're not like the bad guys. They're not like, you can reach out to them and they'll help you. They're not like, oh, you're busted and that we're looking for every opportunity to, get you in trouble and fine you and hurt you. We're not showing up in like police uniforms. They're like normal people. They're like, oh, let's get you in the right way. And thanks for communicating with us. And we'll work this out in a good way with you.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I think everyone would be surprised how many of their actual neighbors work for a local or state government. It's a lot of people, and most of them really want to make their community better. They're not out there to gotcha. They're out to provide resources and expertise.
I think there's there was a misconception from me about the gotcha, and I didn't want to reach out to them. And when I did, I was like calling under a fake name. I was like, I don't want you to know this is my business that I'm asking questions about. There's never been an uncomfortable situation at the state level. I do wonder though, around the USDA giving us guidelines. From my experience, the USDA has not given me any guidelines around testing for harmful things, different pathogens, E. coli, salmonella, mold. They seem to take their guidance from co-packers, and co-packers, especially USDA organic co-packers, they have a set of standards. And it seems like that's what the USDA is like, yeah, just go by them. The USDA seems to come in more after there's an outbreak. There's nothing really that preventative that the USDA is, not even hey, have your salmonella should be 0, or they probably say that, but they don't really give. I was looking for a lot of state or federal guidance. I'm like, hey, where should these numbers be at? Because we have these different ways of cleaning the microgreens, and there's trade-offs for them. So I want to be, in a good way, but this way of cleaning it might burn off some of these vitamins versus this way of cleaning it retains more of the vitamins. But one's you can clean it for different amounts of time, and there's a lot of variables to keeping our microgreens very clean. And my experience was the USDA gave no guidance at all.
Yeah, I think one thing that I find striking is that our federal workforce is the same size today as it has been for the last 50 years. So, that's really interesting, right? There's a lot more things the federal government is responsible for now than they were responsible for 50 years ago. I think that also means that they're pretty focused on these big systems and big general guidance. And sometimes that can be negative for small food entrepreneurs. I really do wish there was more workable support for the little folks and for folks who are just getting started and want to do the right thing for the right reasons. So that's a gap. I think we could invest in that and really do a lot with that additional capacity to advise and guide and provide help. I also think that in general, we want to make sure that no one is poisoned by their food, but we shouldn't overly tamper with the way individual producers know to grow their food. So there is that balance there as well, where, your USDA expert is a general expert in the thing, but you probably will always know more about microgreens than they will, and they shouldn't take your expertise for granted either. So those good partnerships, I think, are most fruitful. And I hope that our small entrepreneurs are asking and pushing for the resources that they need.
Speaking of USDA, I spoke to a USDA agent in Utah not long ago, just looking for some different types of partners. And he shared with me that most of their traditional farming, their outdoor in-field farming, is moving to greenhouses. Can you paint a picture of what the future of farming looks like here in Colorado or at a broader level?
Oh, what an interesting question to think about. I've already confessed to you, I think twice, that I'm not a farmer. But one of the things that is true of farmers is that they are both connected to the past and focused on the future. Farmers are business folks. They know that doing things the same old way doesn't work forever. And given the resources, farmers are very innovative. They want their business to grow. They want to work with the conditions that they have. The changing environment is a big deal for farmers. Volatility around hail damage here in Colorado, for example, is a very big deal. Folks who were going to have a profitable season will lose their entire income for the year with one bad hailstorm. So I think farmers are interested in figuring out ways to work with their changing environment. And I also think farmers are always getting a new infusion of the next generation. So now you hear young farmers talking about things like dehydrators and talking about drones and talking about thermostats in their greenhouses in a way that is unique to this generation. So I think the future of farming is innovative if it's going to survive here in Colorado. And you're seeing projects like Jack's Solar Garden, where they're doing the agrovoltaic project. You're seeing folks like Black Cat Farm, where they're growing full diet, which means that they're really trying some new grain varieties, for example, and so on and so forth. Every farmer is an innovator with a future focus.
Boulder has about 100,000 residents, and about 40,000 are CU students.
That's right.
How do those students, or being here in a college town, support the innovation around food? Is CU known as an innovator in that kind of a way? Are they? I don't know them in that way. I wonder.
Yeah. I think interestingly, CU is not our land-grant university. Colorado State University in Fort Collins is our land grant. So
what's that mean?
The university system in the United States has a couple of different models. One model for state universities is called a land-grant university, where there is an endowment of physical land for the university startup. And in exchange for that land, there's a requirement for land stewardship, and that often means a focus on agriculture. So, Penn State is really well known for their dairy program. They have an incredible working dairy at their land-grant university. They're innovating in farming because they are grown in farming, based in farming, and focused on farming. So in Colorado State University has that land connection. University of Boulder is not a land grant, but still a state university. So I think they focus on it a little bit less. But they have a great business school. They have a really engaged environmental sciences and studies program. And I think that health and nutrition program and that force of, just healthy food is in CU Boulder. So I think it would be fun to see what the university could do in terms of beefing up their innovation in the food sector over time.
Any ideas who's supplying CU with the food?
What a wonderful question. So we are, in part. CU does, I think 3 million meals in the summer. So when they are on their off season, they are serving a ton of food. We supply a lot of local products to them via our food hub. A lot of local farmers sell to them directly. They have an incredibly amazing resource in their trained workforce. So they can take those tomatoes and break them down and make a sauce. They can freeze things. They can transform things. It's a pretty amazing shop at CU, and they really are pushing into local.
Any insights into what any of the athletics, any of the sports teams are consuming? I mean, we've got Deion Sanders here now, which is a larger than life, celebrity. Many say one of the best athletes of all time. Both of his sons were playing here, both just drafted into the NFL. A big part of Deion Sanders' kind of program is just having world-class food. And that was highlighted, and there's been kind of documentaries around it. Any insights in specifics into food flowing into these athletes?
Coach, if you would like to do more local, please call us. We would love to work with the athletics program. I don't have a tremendous amount of insight, but I'm not surprised to hear that food's a priority. People need good food to do good work. So that's something that I'd love to see grow in terms of connection over time.
What's your favorite sport?
What's my favorite sport? Gosh, I love baseball, the least cool, least well-regarded sport here in Colorado, because I love drinking a beer in the park with my friends. So I love that. But I'm a basketball fan. I can get behind a hockey game. I'm an enthusiast, so I love watching someone else work really hard and be really great at something.
And where are you from?
Southeastern Idaho, which is a place with very few sports teams.
And were you working in Boston for a little bit?
I was, yep.
What were you doing there?
From a small town, you either have two options. You have to stay there and live forever and raise your grandchildren, or you have to get out as fast as you possibly can. So for me, it was always going to be the latter. I spent about 6 years in the Seattle metro area for college and just running farmers markets there. And I got very radicalized by farmers markets and decided that I wanted to be an expert in community nutrition and public policy. So from Seattle, I ended up in Boston at a program at Tufts and stayed there for about 10 years, culminating in working for an organization that founded the Boston Public Market. So it was a really fun, very different food system. I showed up on my first day of graduate school to a cranberry bog, and it absolutely blew my mind because I could not imagine using that much water for agriculture. And the lecturer could not understand why I was so shocked by it because they don't have water rights out there. So it was a really interesting, different place to see what's possible for local farms.
So you shared that you were radicalized. What were some of the beliefs that shifted during that time?
So in college, I really wanted to be a climate change public policy wonk. That was my goal. I wanted to work in DC. I wanted to do big behavior shift around climate. And during that study, I got a summer job at a farmer's market, and I would not shut up about climate change, and nobody wanted to talk about it. But I was standing at the info booth one day, and I was listening to the salmon fisher next to me, and she was talking about climate change, but she wasn't saying the word climate change. She was saying, yeah, it's not a very good year for salmon. It's too hot, and that's unusual. And I just realized that food could be that common gathering table and a way in to talk about some of these issues. So, it was just a aha moment for me that venue really matters and that food is a vehicle for lots of other conversations.
Okay, so climate change and around food sustainability, what are some things that you believe to be true around climate change that maybe some people wouldn't know about?
I think if you ask a U.S. farmer today, they will tell you that the climate is more erratic than it was for the last generation of farmers. And
not just because of soil depletion and the poor farming practices, but because of weather related.
Yes, absolutely. I think they will tell you that we get a lot more really hot days, especially here in Colorado. We get a lot more erratic snowfall, which is really tough on producers. And it's just a different weather pattern than they're used to. I don't think it takes a lot to connect that to we need to understand what to do next for our food system, right? This is not a controversial topic to me. I think the climate change models are pretty clear and obvious. We've known this information for a long time. And my expertise is not in being a climate change modeler or a big science wonk. My at least passion has always been around gathering people and galvanizing people for something. So I wanted to talk about food in that way because I think you can talk about getting people together for a big project through food. And I love that.
So after Boston, where did you go?
Well, we were happily living in Boston. I was enjoying it very much. I was having a great time living in the city after growing up in a small town. And
so much history in Boston.
Oh, it's a great city. And it's a food city. You know, it's on a harbor and it's surrounded by ag land and it's full of students. So, you know, just a really cool arts and culture and food vibrancy scene. I loved it. And I also happen to have a life partner from Colorado. And my joke is that they plant them with a homing device at birth. And for most Coloradans, they have to come back to the motherland over time. So my partner really, really needed more sunshine and more rock climbing. And he got a job at the university here in Boulder, and that's what brought us back.
And then what was your work once you came back?
So for a few years after we moved to Boulder, I got involved in local government. I was a staff for Boulder County. I got to work on a lot of really interesting health and human services issues and get to know this community. It was a great way to meet my neighbors here.
Is that where you were the public affairs specialist?
Yeah, that's where I was the public affairs specialist. So my job was to connect the public to the government. I got to be the person who helped communicate what was happening via our Housing and Human Services Department to a regular person who didn't know all the acronyms. And I also got to be the person to take feedback from the public back to our government. And, you know, those civic servants serve the public. So it was a great role. It was really fun to be able to help support that dialogue.
What were some of the most surprising lessons, moments, experiences during that time?
I think for me, I found a lot of satisfaction in working on housing here in Boulder, which is a very difficult issue to work on.
Maybe the most difficult?
Man, it is a hot topic here in this community. And it was always surprising to me how much most people and most people in the government wanted good, affordable housing to be here and how no one could manage to reduce the barriers. So that was interesting and surprising.
Here being in Boulder, in Colorado, both?
Yes, I think it's a both and. It's a Boulder, it's a Colorado, it's a national housing shortage. I think the other surprising thing for me is how much of my time was spent responding to emergencies. You know, the role that I was in charge of telling people information. So when there is a fire or when there is a disaster of another kind, I got to be the one who got to talk to folks about what the government was doing to help. And it was always amazing to me to see both my staff peers and the folks we were talking to come out and rally around disaster. So very surprising, very cool.
How are you communicating?
In lots and lots of different ways. So via the media, via, what used to be Twitter and is now X, via a press conference that gets put on YouTube, via Facebook. The job was how many ways can you reach people? I really enjoyed some of the work that I got to do with a bilingual, bicultural group at the county, trying to figure out how to reach monolingual Spanish speakers. So lots of different ways. So
the Boulder Department of Housing and Human Services, that's what you were a part of?
That's right.
How big is that organization?
It's a big organization. They're responsible for all of the human services in the county, which includes mental health supports, housing, nutrition programs like SNAP, energy efficiency programs. It's a very large department.
From my research, it's about 500 people.
Sure.
And that touches tens of thousands of people across Boulder County every year, which seems amazing to me. What would you say the average person is that they're serving?
Oh my gosh, I think the average person they're serving is everyone in this community. There's really no one who isn't impacted by the services of that department, whether It's through applying for a energy audit so that you can get better sealant on your windows, all the way to making sure that food is on the table of your grocery store clerk who is serving you every day. There's a real range of folks who are impacted by that local government entity. It's pretty amazing.
Was there a moment that you were most proud of, either individually or that the organizational level during your time there?
I mean, I worked for them during the pandemic, so that was a pretty profound time to be providing support and resources for our community. I remember the day that the emergency order went into place, and I spent a lot of time talking about the resources that are available to folks who needed them. So for me, that emergency was 2 years long, and I remain extremely impressed and proud of my colleagues for the creative solutions that they came up with, for the ways they were able to help, and for the personal touch of some of the services. We also, manage things like the Marshall Fire, and I will never forget coordinating the movement of one person's horse to the fairgrounds to make sure that it was safe during that community disaster. So it was just full of these really interesting, surprising pieces of collaboration that I think really make a big difference.
Back to homelessness, what would you say the state of homelessness is in Boulder today?
Homelessness. We're going to talk about all the really big, hard-hitting issues, right? Homelessness.
You've got great opinions. I think there's a lot of people interested. I'm very interested.
Okay, let's all remember I'm a farmers market executive director, right? So my lane is not this broad, but I was proud to work for the Regional Housing Partnership effort when I was at the Human Services Department. And that was a collaborative process with all of the cities and the county in this area to deal with homelessness together. It was this idea that you could share money, you could share expertise, you could share nonprofit providers, and you could work on something as a region together. I think that's the right idea. I think regional systems are the most resilient because you know the community, but you achieve scale. So that was a program that was incredible, and we didn't have enough housing before the pandemic. We didn't have enough housing before Boulder got expensive the last time and then the next time. So in some ways, we're really playing catch up, and we know that housing insecurity, homelessness is a national housing shortage issue. There's just not enough housing stock for people nationally. We have more people who want to live places than we have homes for them. So that national issue is affecting lots of different communities in lots of different ways, and certainly impacting Boulder. I think people will point to the open air homelessness issue as one that's really important to our community. And I share that concern and desire to address that specific issue. I think people don't see families who are doubling up with friends because they can't afford their rent anymore. I don't think people see seniors who are leaving our community because they can't live here on a fixed income. I think people don't see folks who are working multiple jobs in our community and sleeping in their car in order to serve at your favorite local restaurant. So in addition to that really visible homelessness issue, there's just a chronic unaffordability, chronic lack of diverse housing for diverse families and diverse kinds of people. And by diverse, I mean, there's not a condo, there's not a townhouse, there's not a starter home, there's not a big group house model that will really meet the needs of a modern workforce and modern community.
I think when I think of homelessness, I think of that open air,
right?
Which I don't know all the terminology, but that means people kind of like sleeping in the park or on the streets. Right. That's open air homelessness. There's a whole other part of homelessness that I'd never really even thought about.
Right.
So that's people that are hardworking, working at a 9 to 5 at a restaurant, but they just have to sleep in their car because they can't. Here's their job, but they can't make it work. It's not that they have some type of mental disability, or they're abusing some type of drugs or something like that. I think that's probably the stereotypical, at least in my mind, homeless kind of situation?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, you'd be amazed how many people work multiple jobs in this community and can't afford to live here. A lot of people work really hard to make very little to not be able to afford their homes. And that's not unique to here, but it is, I think, a problem, especially for places like Boulder or some of our mountain towns, where some of the things that make our place special is those service industries that are lower paying. And we have not figured out a good housing solution for folks who serve our community.
Are there any other, maybe more general misconceptions that the public has around homelessness?
I think something that I'll just note is the rise in homelessness for young kids in our community. Mm-hmm. You know, there's a lot of families who are housing insecure in Boulder County, and that's not for lack of work. That's not for lack of attempt. It's just the average home cost is over $1.1 million in Boulder right now. It's pretty hard to have a family and work a minimum wage job in this community. So I'm noticing, and I think our community knows, that some of the Growing Up Boulder reports on child-friendly cities are increasingly highlighting youth homelessness and homelessness in young kids as an emerging issue that we need to be watching.
Are these kids on their own, or are they with a family and the whole family's homeless?
Both. So certainly with their families, and the whole family's homeless. And that can mean, you know, many things. It can mean living in your car. It can mean staying with a friend in a way that you don't have a lease or a lot of certainty. It can also mean that you are a young kid who is from a home that isn't able to provide for you, or that you are leaving an abusive situation, or you are without resources for a variety of reasons. And yeah, you're a young adult and you don't have a place to stay.
What do you think the federal government's role is here versus local government?
Man, Stephen, you're really getting me on my housing policy. You know,
you worked there. You were a pro, and you're so articulate, and you're knowledgeable. You're crushing all of this.
Man,
you're doing a great job.
I hope that you then have an actual housing expert, because I don't think there's a one size fits all.
Aaron Brockett was on here just last week, and that's why I feel kind of energized about it, because he shared quite a bit about it, and I can share more on that in a moment.
Awesome. Aaron is super smart, and I do think we have some incredible local leadership on this issue, so that heartens me. It is something that will take investment and will to deal with. So from my perspective, the federal government's role here is appropriately resourcing mental health supports and actually putting time and money into making sure that people can function in society through substance abuse assistance and other services. That's something we need when we're talking about catastrophic and historic rates of fentanyl abuse. That's a down systems issue. We are seeing chickens come home to roost that have been 30 years in the making there, and the federal government should invest in some of the solution and upstream divergence of that. We are also all responsible for creating environments where kids aren't facing traumatic events and having adverse experiences that can contribute to homelessness in later life. We are, I think, as an entire community, responsible for looking ourselves in the eyes and talking about the fact that we want people to live in this community, which means we sometimes have to build more density and more housing for more kinds of folks. So I think there's responsibility and innovation and solutions at the federal and local levels.
So with Aaron being on last week, he shared that homelessness is the number one issue that he faces today, and mostly from a mental health and substance abuse, alcohol being the number one substance abuse in our community and probably nationally.
Sure.
For homeless and not homeless. Number one. Number two is fentanyl. Just last month, 4 people in Boulder died from overdose. He shared that they're just being snuck into pills. People are thinking they're taking like a painkiller, Oxycontin kind of a pill, and there's fentanyl in it. I'm like, why would these drug dealers kill their own customers and
On and on, right?
On
It's
and
a
on, but
mad-
something I'm just like, sometimes I wish that my customers were a little bit more addicted to microgreens. I wish microgreens were a little bit more addictive.
Oh no!
I'm like, how could I?
Different business model.
Just more like chocolate and microgreens. How could I just make? I just want a line at the farmers market. I want people
need to
really
try them
want.
more. They're so delicious.
Well, that's a gift for you.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. I'm almost out, so it's actually perfect.
So it's a blend of broccoli, radish, red cabbage, 3 different types of radish. We're USDA organic now as
Nice.
well.
That's awesome.
Yeah, tell me, how do you like to use your microgreens?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so I have a lot of strategies for microgreens. This is now a much more luxury thing to say than it used to be, but I love eggs. So I eat a lot of eggs, and I love the microgreens in eggs.
How do you like to do your eggs?
I like them in all ways, and I like all of those ways with microgreens. I have to say they're that kind of spicy, as we said, herby flavor for me. But typical lunch, I'll do scrambled eggs, microgreens, and whatever green that is growing in whoever's yard I am pillaging from in a tortilla running out the door.
And are you cooking the microgreens in the eggs, or are you waiting to plate it?
I wait to plate
Okay.
it. I put it in the, plate being tortilla, right? Portable food important. But I do think about the heat effect, which I think you were right. So I'm doing that one. I love them in a smoothie. I kind of like a savory smoothie. So sorry, everyone, don't be mad. I love them in a sauce. I'm eating a lot of Japanese style noodles, soba noodles, and I love them on top of that as a garnish or an additional herbal flavor. I just think they're good added to most things. Think of them like hot sauce and you will be fine. Pizza, delicious.
And can you speak to, are you familiar we have several fantastic microgreens farms at the market. Are you aware of any of the benefits to them?
Good for you? No, please tell us
good.
all the good things that microgreens will do for you.
So we do all the brassicas, broccoli, radish, cabbage. Those are thought of as the kings of the microgreens because they're the most detoxifying. They're really good at empowering the body to produce their own antioxidants. It gets a little sciencey, but there's words like sulforaphane. Maybe you've come across that a lot of people are flocking to broccoli because broccoli's got the best PR of all the microgreens and all the sprouts.
The broccoli lobby.
The broccoli lobby is strong.
Cheers to broccoli.
Cheers to broccoli. And because it's an antioxidant that empowers the body to produce its own antioxidants. Antioxidants are important because they get rid of bad things.
Sure.
When one antioxidant combines with one poison, they both just disappear. And we can't consume enough antioxidants. You and I can eat a whole basket of blueberries right now and it wouldn't be enough antioxidants to counteract all of the free radicals, poisons that are coming into our body. So the best way is to produce your own. The compounds, these unique plant compounds that are in the microgreens are the most powerful fuel that we're aware of to help the body produce its own antioxidants. When we lose the ability to produce our own antioxidants by 1-2% every year after the age of 20. So that's the number, that's like the biohacker reason that I like it so much. The number 2 reason is it's a very easy way to sneak a lot more vegetables in.
Amen.
Amen.
I mean, I have a nutrition master's degree, and to boil it down, I feel like plants are magic, right? Eat more plants, eat more different colors of plants. Microgreens are so small and so powerful and so tasty. It's a win-win-win.
Which plant would you say you have the deepest connection with?
I mean, it might actually have to be greens just because there are always greens. When you are tired, there are greens. When you are poor, there are greens. When you have nothing in your refrigerator, there are greens. I just think those tiny little leaves are just so constant in my diet.
If you were to personify greens, like what is the energy of greens? What's the soul of greens?
Ooh, what's the soul of greens? I feel like it's a little crunchy. It's a little spicy. It's a little fresh. The coolest girl you know with the best music recommendation is greens. They're so great.
What's the last concert you saw?
What's the last concert I saw? Ooh.
Because I feel like you're kind of greens.
I got my own greens.
No, you're a bit of a greens vibe, and you've got a good recommendation for us.
Okay, let me put you onto something. This is not a concert. Don't be mad. Do you know Little Horse Vintage here in town? They are on Pearl and 20th. They have a sister store in Louisville, and it's a cool vintage spot. They turn their basement into a record listening session once a month. So they just did an amazing DJ set with a cumbia list last weekend, and it was so fun, and it was so random and very affordable. So that was my most recent live music experience. It was great.
What else is around 20th? I'm trying to picture that.
It's right next to River and Woods.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else do you like on Pearl Street?
I've been to the Velvet Elk a fair amount. That's been a fun one lately.
I've never been.
Oh, see, that's a good music venue. That's
it
worth a
is?
go. Yes.
Oh.
That's worth it. It is a tiny little skinny bar. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's on, I think it's actually off of Pearl on 11th. So just up from the market. Go check it out on Saturday.
The Velvet Elk.
The Velvet Elk. They run a lot of small and local bands through their shop. They have some affinity with, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting it? What's the name of the new music nonprofit in town? Do you know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. Oh, I'm going to pinch myself. There's a cool local music nonprofit. You're way
more plugged in. I'm more at the Boulder, the Fox Theater, the Boulder Theater, Red Rocks. I pretty much go between those three.
But that's awesome, right?
Those
There's
are awesome.
So much good
super
music.
Epic. But I would love to know more of the local.
The smaller spot. Well, Velvet Elk's a good one. The St. Julian has the best band on a Friday night gig in town. Oh my God.
It's Friday night right now.
We should see if they're playing a band. They open up their patio. They do a ton of salsa. Very common to do Afro-Brazilian. They've got a great...
Are you dancing? Are you getting out there and dancing?
I love to dance.
What are you doing?
I mean, wiggling. I'm not a good dancer. I just like to go.
Oh, you're talking salsa.
Yeah, well, my problem is I like to lead. So I'm not a great salsa dancer, but I sure enjoy it.
If you were to take one dance lesson, what would you take?
Oh, I mean, I would love to take all the dance lessons. I think dancing is so fun. We all should do it more.
Agreed. It's good medicine. There's a lot of ecstatic dances in town. I do that. That's kind of fun. That's I grew up Midwest, super conservative. No one was really dancing. I'm like, there's an edge for me to dance. So that's been good medicine for me. And then going to concerts with my partner, that's a lot of fun. And so we've been talking what's a dance class that we could go to? That's been coming up more and more. And we haven't settled on one or found one yet, but it's just so fun when you're both in sync dancing.
Yeah, totally.
Versus both of us just wiggling. She's a good dancer and I'm more like the wiggler. We could hang out and just wiggle. But sometimes we both hit a groove where we're doing the same thing. I'm like, oh, that feels really good. Let's go take a lesson where we're both staying in that flow together.
Go to the Avalon. It is so fun.
That's where I do the ecstatic dance on Sundays.
Okay, right on.
I think it's 11 a.m. Sundays. It's just an hour long. But they have other classes there too.
Yeah, totally.
Oh, okay.
They have a Thursday night salsa night. I think they have a West Coast swing class and social hour. Yeah, there's lots of dancing in this community. It's great.
Now, anything on Pearl Street outside of the bar scene or any other types of spots that you like?
Oh my gosh. I spend a lot of time on Pearl Street because it's right in between the market. I can be reliably found to drink a glass of wine at Gemini. I love those guys.
Gemini is phenomenal.
So
tapas.
Delicious. Yes. Little small nibbles, really tasty.
What do you like to get there?
Whatever's good, right? Their chef does a lot of local sourcing. They have a lot of farm relationships, which is really fun. I've been doing Kazobi Fondafina a fair amount lately. That's one up on Walnut. They do all of their cooking in a hickory wood oven, and it is traditional nixtamalized corn product. So the only real gluten-free spot in town. So delicious. Oh my God. That is really good.
Is that more like South American, Mexican? What's that?
I would say it's modern and Mexican. I mean, very cool seasonal menu, changes a lot. They have a sweet potato dish that is possibly the best thing I ate last year. It was so good. Fennel-infused ricotta, salsa matcha on a fire-roasted sweet potato. It was so amazing.
I eat a sweet potato every day.
You do?
Yeah.
Okay, tell me how you eat your sweet potato.
With breakfast, and I blanch it.
Yes.
Boil water, cube it small.
Okay.
Get it into the boiling water, get it back up to boil, 15 minutes, drain it, and then I pan fry it.
Yum.
and butter, coconut oil, a little salt, pepper, maybe some garlic.
Yes.
I have that with eggs that I'll get from the market.
Nice.
And then maybe some type of, maybe like a fruit, maybe something fermented, but typically eggs, sweet potato every morning.
I love sweet potatoes. People eat more sweet potatoes. They're so good. And they can be sweet or savory. I love a sweet potato with a scoop of ice cream. Sorry.
Oh, really?
So good.
How do you do that?
You just roast it low and slow for a long time. Cut it open. You could put a little honey on there, a little sesame seed, a little scoop of ice cream. Amazing.
Where do you get your ice cream?
This is my true passion, ice cream.
I knew we'd find it.
It's just, this is it. You know, if I could have one true empire, it would be ice cream. Heaven's Ice Cream is the best ice cream in town, I have to say. They are very whole food oriented. They care a lot about flavor. It's the only place you can get a kale ice cream in town. It's worth a try.
That's
so
innovative.
Good, dude. They have a black cherry ice cream that is so unbelievable. So anyway,
Where are they?
they are on Arapahoe, right behind McGunkin's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a very strange location, but the best ice cream.
And what flavor are you getting?
You know, I'm getting whatever is their seasonal thing. They had a sweet corn one the other day.
Wow.
I know. Unbelievable. So good.
Yay.
Aren't we lucky we get to eat all the good food?
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, Be Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded Be Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1 week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have two flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
We are. I want to wrap this up for us with a lightning round.
Okay. Oh, man.
This is sponsored by Be Micro.
Brought to you by Be Micro, your source for King Brassica.
That sounded great. That was really good. You got that. You just went full radio voice.
I
and you
went Terry
crushed
Gross.
it.
I was trying.
You went what?
I was going for Terry Gross. Did I did it?
You nailed it.
Yes.
You nailed it. 10 out of 10.
Hero.
What is your go-to item at the farmer's market?
Greens.
What's a farmer or vendor you always stop by to say hi to?
Black Cat Farm.
One local ingredient you couldn't live without.
I can only choose one local ingredient, honey.
What's your go-to quick, nourishing meal?
Green salad and an egg on top.
What does self-care look like for you?
Moving more slowly. Actually having that conversation, not rushing as much.
What does a day off look like for you?
A lot of running, a lot of figuring out how to cook all the things I bought that week, and maybe some reading.
What are you reading?
Ooh, I'm reading March. Does that ring a bell? It's actually great. It's, I think, a 2011 Pulitzer Prize winner. It is the retelling of the Little Women story from their dad's perspective, who went off to fight in the Civil War. Really good.
What's the last thing that inspired you in your work?
I was at Jacob Spring Farm right before this interview, listening to a farmer talk about how he manages his land sustainably through rotational grazing and vegetable production. And it was so inspiring to listen to him talk. It's such hard work to be a farmer. It's so busy this time of year, and it can be relatively thankless because all the things you do to prep the vegetable, you can't communicate in the vegetable itself. But listening to him talk about his passion and care for the community was incredible.
What are some common threads amongst our Boulder, Colorado farmers?
I think our Boulder farmers and our food producers really care about place. They really care about the terroir of it all, right? That they're giving to this community, that it tastes like this community, that it's interesting and engaging and of this place.
If you weren't working in food systems, what would you be doing?
Retired.
And what does retirement look like?
You know, I always joke that my dream job is to be David Attenborough, but no one's hiring. You know, I really love that storytelling piece. I really love the natural world. So maybe I would be doing more storytelling, doing more art, doing more chatting to people in my retirement.
What do you like to buy?
I mean, other than food?
Yeah.
Well, we have an incredible vintage scene here in Boulder County. There's a thrift store for every person. So I love that hunt in that way.
Me too.
Yeah, really fun.
What's the last thing you got at the thrift store?
What's the last thing I got? I got a cool old rug, actually. I love this True Hospice thrift store on Arapahoe. Have you been to that one before? Amazing.
I got this runner.
I love it.
Yeah, that's a good one. Bright and colorful. And then I got this money clip.
Ooh, oh, I love that. Sorry, I'm going to knock the microphone. So cool.
There can be like so much love. I feel that somebody had this for like 40 years and just like loved this stuff. There's so much like soul and just like blessings around this thing.
Well, isn't it fun to think of your kindred spirits before you, right? Just someone whose taste you clearly have. Every now and then you'll go and you'll be like, I can tell the same person donated all of this stuff and that person's my kind of person. I love that
Who's your kind of person? Who is that?
It might be sort of a Miss Frizzle-esque character, like kooky art teacher. I'm a very bright color, bright pattern, bright texture person. I really love fabric. I don't know. Just eclectic, maybe.
What other farmers markets have you been to that have inspired you?
I love farmers markets. I don't know if you're
Me too.
hearing this,
I'm
right?
a mega fan.
Me too. I call it market research. I have to go to the farmers market at every single city I visit. And they're all good. I think everyone's farmers market is the best farmers market because it's your place and your neighbors. So I haven't been to a bad farmers market yet.
Have you been to Santa Fe?
Yes, our sister farmers market.
Oh, it is?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. In fact, so much so that the organizers of the Santa Fe Farmers Market and Boulder County Farmers Markets were friends. And they went to a conference together in the late 80s. And that kind of kicked off some of the farmers market programming we still have today.
I love that they're year-round.
Yeah. Oh, me too.
Is there a path to where the season could be extended in Boulder?
Absolutely. I think farmers will grow it if we had a place to sell it. So I'm pretty encouraged to see the city talking about the Market District on 13th Street. They're redeveloping that area, and they're thinking about how to make some more permanent year-round market presence there. So we've talked about it before. It's one of my biggest and highest priorities to make sure we have it happen this time.
What are the most popular items at the farmers market?
Peaches, honey. We have a real passionate crowd for grass-fed beef. I think our natural products shoppers are doing things like investing in vinegars and microgreens and pickles. Mushrooms are a really popular product right now. What else? I don't know.
Bread?
Bread. A lot of bread, yes. A lot of bread, a lot of coffee. Can't have a farmer's market without those things. We have good eaters. Thank you.
Anything else that you'd like to share?
No, thanks for being part of this community. Thank you for your time.
Where can people learn more about you, the market, what you're up to?
Well, you can come and see me at the farmer's market. I invite anyone to stop by and say hello.
Which one are you at?
I'm at all of them. So that's the hard part, is tracking me down. I think I went to...
Like half day Boulder Saturday? Because there's two on Saturday.
Yes. And my staff runs the farmer's market. They are so much better than I am at the actual logistics. But I will reliably shop at either the Boulder or the Longmont Saturday market, and then probably also the Wednesday market. So I'm bopping around at all times, but you can find out more about us at Boulder County Farmers Markets, bcfm.org. You can follow us on Instagram. You can find us on LinkedIn. And I hope that you also check out our Food Hubs website where you can order year-round local food.
Great. Thanks so much, Mackenzie.
You bet. Thank you.